they don't want you to say certain things. They can't use certain things that they're told not to. I was dead twice.
Good news. We got the tickets. You're coming to the fight, baby.
Because if you do what most people think, you go downhill. So because I couldn't lift my head up, I actually thought I had no leg. When you're dealing with certain government people, even in the same building on different floors, they don't speak to each other. There was an incident with a policeman.
Hi, this is Tyson Fury, and this is a quick, simple message to say anybody can achieve anything if you want it. And anyone who's struggling with anything out there, you can come back from it, because I did. And I hope I'm inspiring you as much as I'm inspiring myself on this comeback. All the best, God bless.
Hi, my name's Anwar. And I was in a very serious situation several years ago, to the point where because I had a rare infection under the skin, and the damage wasn't being done to the skin itself, it was being done not even to the bones, it was being done to the meat in between. So I had all the flesh cut off, so I had to learn how to try and walk again, 1 step, 2 steps, 3 steps, like a baby. But the rare infection I had, in fact, the original plastic surgeon drew a black permanent marker on the top of my leg, right at the very top of my leg, where they were going to amputate my leg. It's only because that particular surgeon rang up another surgeon. He drove over and helped save my leg. I mean, it was very serious. In terms of recovery, if I had listened to most of the general public, I wouldn't even be facing the camera now, and you wouldn't even be seeing me. I probably would have been 6 foot under. And I know from personal experience, there's quite a lot of people who've passed away because people tell them so many negative things. They can't do this, can't do that, you shouldn't be doing this, you shouldn't be doing that. And they believe it because so many people are saying it, and now they know more. They've turned to dust.
So when did all this happen?
This was 2017, summer of 2017.
And based on everything that was going on at the time, how long were you immobile for?
Minimum 2.5 years. I was in hospital for many months. I was dead twice. Once during surgery and once after. Everybody at the time was telling me, when I tried to even go 1 or 2 steps in a frame, "Oh, Anwar, you should be in bed, you should be in bed, you should be in bed. Why are you even trying to go 1 step or 2 steps? You should be in bed." And this was everyone. There was not a single person I met that told me otherwise. And then I decided, you know what, I can't really listen to this. I need to, because I spent so long in hospital, I had muscle wastage. And if you pass me that bottle of water, when I came out of hospital, or when I first woke up in hospital, this bottle of water, right, that's about half full. I don't know if you can see it, that's about half full. I couldn't pick this up. It would probably have to be about here for me to pick it up. That's how much muscle wastage I had. So if you think you're in a bad situation, somebody's been worse. And even with me, as bad as I was, some people are even worse than that. Unless you've been there through something, you don't realize. So, and then eventually, after trying to go 1 step, and then after a few weeks, 2 steps, a few weeks later, 3 steps. At one point, middle of the night, this is after I've come out of hospital, and even then I had a nightmare dealing with the councils. because then I suffered serious vision problems, couldn't walk, I'm getting no help. I'm also being told to go to a place called Oakwood in North London. I was nowhere near Oakwood, nowhere near it. It's a long way from where I was after I came out of hospital. I managed to ring up the relevant people and I said that I can't go to an assessment centre in Oakwood. It's out in the sticks. Oakwood, if you look on the map, it's in the north of North London. It's right far. And when I was telling them that I can't get there, they're telling me, oh, if I can't come there, we can't help you. I said, I can't get there. They said, oh, we can't help you, and put the phone down. This happened to me several times. So now this has gone on for many months.
And do you want to explain why you couldn't get there, just in case anybody missed it?
Because of my surgery, I had all the meat cut off. And I had double split spin grafts, where the flesh on both thighs, they get cut off and put onto a particular section of the leg. I won't go into details. Eventually, when I got people I met out on the street, I was speaking to various people. Some of them said, look, we'll pick you up, we'll take you to various council offices, and then you can speak to them face to face. Because when I was doing it on the phone, nobody wanted to know. It's like, you go to that place, otherwise we don't want to deal with you. Eventually, going to these places, I figured out who these people's overall boss was, because when you're dealing with a normal member of staff, they can only do so much. And then they're always referring to someone else. That person's referring it to someone else. That person's referring it to someone else. That person is then referring it to someone else. Even if it's in the same building, I don't know what it's like up and down in the country or abroad if you're watching this, when you're dealing with certain government people. Even in the same building on different floors, they don't speak to each other. At the time, I realized from going up the line, I figured out that these people are getting paid by one person. Their overall boss was Amber Rudd, MP. Shout out to Amber Rudd. I had to write to Parliament. I won't get into the specifics. It's private. But what I can say is shout out to some of the MPs. Things got sorted.
I could see the emotion in your face.
Yeah, it took me 2 weeks to write a letter, because you can't write a letter. You can't do it like, for example, I'm speaking to a mate, and you can't just write a little note, make it basic. You got to go into great detail. It took me about 2 weeks to write multiple pages. Eventually, I got picked up. This is before all this lockdown business. I mean, this lockdown business, that's another story. We could go on all day on that. But anyway, I ended up meeting various people. Things got sorted. In the meanwhile, I'm still doing my exercises, trying to walk 1 step, 2 steps, 1 step, 2 steps, have a break, 1 step, 2 steps, have a break, then 3 steps, and then eventually 4 steps. At one point, I made my way to a particular road, and this is late at night. I felt a bit stronger on this particular night. I just got up. It took me a good couple of hours to get to a bus stop because of the speed I was going, and I had to have breaks after 1 or 2 steps. Probably for most people, it would take them just a couple of minutes, few minutes. I ended up in central London. There was an incident with a policeman who was going to, let's just say he was going to end it. So I stopped him. And from there, certain things happened. I ended up on a radio station. And then from there, certain people contacted a particular radio station, and I ended up going to various different gyms. In between, I met Tyson Fury's father. Shout out John Fury and Tyson. When they were doing their comeback, when Tyson was doing his comeback, everybody was saying to him that he's stupid, he's mad, even saying to his dad, "Are you mad telling Tyson to come back?" When Tyson was doing his comeback, going to the gyms every day, I started going to the gyms every day. People in various gyms looking at me, they couldn't understand, how is this guy coming to the gym? He can't see properly. Because depending where I am on certain equipment, I have to feel my way around. There's an issue with my eyes.
Can you explain the effect this had on your eyes?
Depending on circumstances, the nerves from your left leg, from the waist area, they go to the opposite side of the brain. So, whatever issue I had before, multiplied after my surgery. In hospital, I was being drip fed. So you can imagine, I couldn't even turn around. I couldn't even see a window. I missed the whole summer of that particular year. This is several years ago. Yeah. So I couldn't turn around. At one point, I couldn't even turn my head. So when you have all that circumstances, you get muscle wastage. So this is what happened. So I had to build up my strength. When I was going to various gyms, some of the fighters kept on looking at me. They couldn't understand, how am I coming to the gym every single day, 2, 3, 4 hours a day. So I was doing that every day. And I know for a fact Tyson, who was grossly overweight at the time, was doing the same thing. And the same thing, if you've heard Tyson's story, everybody was putting him off. A lot of people have heard his story. You thought that was bad. He'll tell you himself, mine was as bad, if not worse. So then from there, I started building up my strength. And then it got to the stage where, when I was on the roads with my frame, I started practicing for an hour or two in the mornings, hour or two in the evenings, stepping off the pavement, turning around, stepping back onto the pavement, stepping off the pavement, stepping back onto the pavement, stepping off, stepping on. So you have to concentrate to do that for an hour to 2 hours. Every day, stepping off, stepping back on, stepping off, stepping on.
So, were you on your own or was someone guiding you?
No, on my own, but over a period of time, certain people in the area that I was in, they kept on seeing me do this day after day. So I had like a little group who used to yeah, it was a bit funny. Yeah. And then I'd have certain shopkeepers coming out giving me drinks and stuff while I'm doing it. Then from there, I started practicing on the underground stations. On certain underground stations, you have multiple steps. So on the steps, I started going down 1, 2, 3, 4 steps, turning back around on the frame, going up 1, 2, 3, 4 steps, going down, going up, going down, going up. So certain people in various underground stations got to know me, because sometimes when they're going for their break, they come in at the station, they kept to see me every day doing the same thing. Even people sometimes going to work or coming back, they got to recognize me, because this has gone on for quite a long time. Their first thought was, why am I not in bed like everybody was saying to me in the beginning? But actually, what the hell is he doing? This is a bit madness, because I discovered the infection that I had, which was very rare. Most people who had it on the year that I had it passed away. They didn't make it. So I'm including England, Scotland, Wales and Northern Ireland. So it's only a tiny fraction of the percentage of the population that had what I had, and most of them didn't make it. So to move forward, you gotta do the opposite to what most people think. Because if you do what most people think, you go downhill. The human brain wants you to be lazy, tired, lay in bed, You've got to have something inside you to get up and do something that's what most people think is impossible or uncomfortable, or you think is impossible or uncomfortable. Because otherwise you just lay in bed all day. Then from there, I encountered several people. Like you get youngsters who are messing around on the streets, including girls, women, people doing silliness on the street. And because they used to see me doing whatever exercises I was trying to do to get stronger, and they saw the physical change in my upper body, because my upper body now, I'm fairly strong, and compared to what I was before, differences between night and day. So they used to look at me and they couldn't believe that I'm getting stronger. Then I started speaking to them and saying to them, look, you're fighting on the street or you're doing silliness. Somebody will do something bad to you and you'll be no more. And then your parents will be talking in the newspaper or on the news. Oh, my son or my daughter was a good boy, or this and that, all this sob story, which 90% of the time is nonsense. The public know it. The parents are just going to say what they're going to say. So I explained this to several of the youngsters. And they started going to various gyms after that. And some of them still going a few years later. So if you're going to do something, do it. If it takes someone to tell you to do something different, they're telling you for your benefit. Over the period of time, I would say around about 80, 90, 100, possibly 110 people around that sort of range have started going to various gyms around the area where I am and across the country. And they're going consistently, if not every day, every other day.
Can you explain the importance of going to the gym for you and how potentially it can help other people that are in similar situations, whether it's mental health, whether it's physical health, whatever it is?
With Tyson, it helped him with his mental health and stopped him going to the stage of taking drugs, being grossly overweight. That's one thing. In my case, because of my physical condition and some other people's physical condition is very serious. And the thought of somebody like me at the time, or someone else even more serious going to a gym, is laughable to most people. When I started going to the gyms, now you've got to do certain things that are painful. Start off slowly, obviously, to get used to certain equipment and whatever you've got to do to get yourself stronger. Because I had an issue with my left leg, it was incredibly weak to the point of being almost non-existent. So to build up the strength compared to what I had on my right leg, I had to do a lot of work. And then my upper body strength. So the only way I figured out to push my body after a certain amount of time, once I got used to certain equipment and I figured out my routine, what I need to do, I realized from speaking to certain fighters, when they're pushing their body to the limit, and this includes back in the day when I met Gerald McClellan, who fought Nigel Benn. The guy is a dangerous individual, but even with him, and there's other fighters nowadays that do the same thing, and I had to use the same thing because nothing else worked. I had to picture, for example, a hatred of somebody or something. So I had it in my head. This is going to sound a bit crude here, but if it works and it helps somebody who's in a bad situation, use it. All this snowflake business, certain people don't want you to say certain things. Keep it soft, and this is how people drop dead. Sometimes you've got to say it as it is. So, for example, say a particular individual, I don't like this person because of something that's happened in the past. When I was doing my exercises, I pictured that person, and when I'm doing a particular exercise on my upper body or my leg, I had a picture that I'm doing damage to this person's head
So your dislike or hate of somebody else saved you.
to the point where not only am I doing serious damage to that person, their brains have turned to mush. And then from mush, I've liquefied it. Then from liquefying it, I've stepped all over it. Say, for example, I could only push my body to do 5 or 6 reps of something, or 2 or 3 minutes of something. I could push it to 20 minutes of something, or 15, 20, 25, 30, and eventually 80 reps of something.
Because you've now given yourself a reason.
Yeah. And I know there's professional fighters in combat sports. If they get into a very serious situation in the ring or in the octagon, they use that mindset to help push their body to win their fight, because that's a dangerous sport. I know some of the youngsters that I've taken off the street, they've now started, not only they've got their body in shape and they're not doing any silliness outside where somebody could have put a blade in them or a bullet in their head. They're doing things properly. Some, you never know, 1 or 2 of them might end up becoming professional in their combat sports. But some of, like I said, some of the people who are in combat sports, because that's a dangerous sport, you can get killed in the ring legally. This is not table tennis. Yeah. This is a dangerous sport. I've met professional fighters who've ended up in a serious situation, and I've been at fights where somebody has come out of it and been never the same again, physically.
You showed me a picture of one of the fighters that's been through that. You want to talk about it?
Michael Watson, who fought Nigel Benn and Chris Eubank. If you haven't seen the fights, go on YouTube. Great fights. And for example, with his second fight with Chris Eubank, he was winning the fight convincingly. Knocked Eubank down. Eubank was on his last legs. He was knackered. When Eubank got up, something's obviously gone in his brain for a split-second moment to make him physically strong as an ox. And he put all his power into one shot, and it landed flush on Michael Watson's chin from underneath. So it was an uppercut from underneath. Unfortunately for Michael Watson, when he fell back, his neck snapped off the bottom rope, and he ended up in a coma. We won't go into details, you can find out yourself, but he's doing very well now. I've met him a couple of times, and I met his carer. He's doing very well.
If we put that into perspective, where Chris Eubank had to find that strength from somewhere. Obviously, it was a really sad situation. I watched that fight.
I know what you're going to say. When you're on the brink of being finished, you gotta do whatever it takes.
When we were walking up here, you were telling me the story about how the doctors had told you you would never walk again, and it used to take you a couple of hours just to walk a couple of steps. And now you've walked 200-300 meters in a matter of a couple of minutes. Same as everybody else, even against what the doctors had told you. So what I'm trying to get at is the inner strength that you had to find to get there. Where did that come from?
Amazing.
I don't know if I can explain this and you can picture this. Actually, this sounds a bit mad. They had these dummy steps. They made me go up and down these dummy steps, which were placed on a flat floor. I couldn't put my heel down because of the surgery I had. And I'm having these medical people shouting at me, telling me I'm stupid. Why am I not putting my heel down? Not just once, not twice, not 3 times, not 4 times. We're talking 20, 30, 40 times. Put your effing heel down. Because I had all the meat cut off, I couldn't put my heel down. I'm trying my hardest. And it wouldn't reach. Afterwards, I find out that because of what took place, I don't know how this works, but my one leg is fractionally shorter than my other leg. It's not really noticeable, but when you try and, I don't know if you can see my hands, you try to level something, if one is slightly shorter than the other, slight imbalance, you got to angle your body in such a way. I couldn't put my heel down. And at one point, one of the medical people grabbed the bottom of my leg and tried to force it down, which then put me in bed for several days where I couldn't move. Because they thought I'm making it up. But that's another story. Just because they're a medical person doesn't mean they've seen everything.
What was the importance of all the fighters, all the professional boxers that you met on your journey through this?
Well, they helped me a lot. When you see what they had to go through to come back, and in the case of one of them, he was coming back, and the amount of work he had to do to come back, and I was doing a similar thing, and because you see them doing their work every day to prove people wrong, I was doing every single day, 2, 3, 4 hours a day, whatever's necessary. Whether it's stepping off the pavement, coming back onto the pavement, stepping back off the pavement, coming back onto the pavement. Hour, 2 hours in the morning, hour, 2 hours in the evening, practicing that, then going from a few steps. Not to the point where I overdo it, because you could, like with fighters, you could overtrain, and that's not good as well. But you need to push your body to a limit as well. So, shout out to Shakira as well, by the way, and AEG. When I was on the radio station, one of the head of Europe, and they heard about certain things, and also I stopped certain people doing silly things, because I kept on ending up in incidents where somebody's about to commit suicide somewhere, and this happened on several different places, including one lady who was going to take a drug overdose. I was in an arena where will.i.am was. Shout out will.i.am. And I came out of this particular area where he was in. There was thousands of people there. I went to the disabled toilets. This lady the door wasn't locked. I opened the door of the disabled toilets, and she was about to take a drug overdose in the toilet, but I hadn't locked the door. I saw what she had, and I flushed everything that she had down the toilet. And then she starts hitting me in the chest several times. At the time, I was still very weak, actually, and I'm in the walking frame every day. She starts slapping me, punching me on my chest. Eventually, I grabbed her and pinned her to the wall, and then talked some sense into her. And then she started telling me why she was going to do this. Obviously, I won't go into details, but it was a family thing. But put it this way, since I encountered that woman, her and her family are back together and everything's good as new. I was going to say another thing. There was a young lady who was going to commit suicide because of exam results. Imagine that. I won't say where it was and the exact situation, but she was about to do something which a lot of people would see. But everybody was ignoring it. And I'm the only one who seemed to clock on that she's about to do something very serious. I go different places and things are happening in front of me since I come out of hospital. So anyway, I managed to stop this girl and take her out of that situation. And then other people call the police and ambulance crew and...
So, do you think that after the situation that happened to you, you are now in a position where you're more in touch with yourself and you're able to read situations that you weren't able to read before?
I was thinking of this recently. And I think it started from this point. I don't know how whoever's watching this is going to understand what I'm saying. When I was in the hospital for a long time, when I eventually opened my eye fractionally, remember, there were many days I couldn't speak. And at the time, nobody knew who I was. So when I eventually woke up in my mind, I didn't know that I was in hospital. I didn't know I was in hospital. I was in Boots or Superdrug. In fact, when I had that rare infection, I actually never mentioned this actually. When I had that pain in my leg, it was only 2 days damage. On the second day, I thought, because the pain was getting worse, and I thought, okay, I'll get some paracetamol or something, and then on the Monday or something, go and see the doctor or something, or go to the hospital. But he never got to that stage. When it got to the second day, which was now a Saturday, I was in central London somewhere. It got to the point where I was struggling to even get off the pavement. And then when I was crossing the road, I was struggling to get back onto the pavement. The pain kept on moving. Like, imagine if this is my leg. The pain is here for 1 hour. An hour and a half later, the pain is not hurting me here badly, it's hurting me over here. Then an hour or two later, it's not hurting me here, it's hurting me over here. When I mentioned this to a few people, nobody believed me. They thought I've gone crackpot. The pain can't move around. Because it's not a normal thing. So they thought, I must be a bit loopy. So eventually I got into one of the pharmacies. I picked up the paracetamol, I've gone in the queue. This is before the lockdown. So you can imagine on a packed Saturday, the shop's packed. I've gone in the queue. Eventually I'm holding onto the shelf. I couldn't move. The pain is just so much. The lady at the counter's calling me. And I'm just holding on to the shelf. And the woman behind me kept on saying to me, go on, go on. And then she got annoyed with me and then shoved me into the shelf. Like, really physically pushed me hard into the shelf. And because I was in so much pain, I couldn't say nothing to her. So I'm holding on to the shelf. So the lady went to the counter. And she hadn't finished getting served, but she turned around and realized, because I hadn't said something to her, because normally a human reaction is you're going to say something. If I do something to you, unexpected, you're going to say something or do something. It's just a normal human reaction. To say nothing is abnormal. Because I didn't say nothing, she come back up to me and put me on the floor. Then the people in the queue undone my... This is baking hot. This is in the summer. So they undone the buttons on my shirt, took my shirt off. And because I couldn't speak, I was in so much pain, I started pointing to my leg, my left leg. After a while, some of the people in the queue got the hint. It's nothing to do with my upper body. Then they undone my belt, took my trousers down, so I'm lying naked on the shop floor. The staff go running around closing the shop. And then I woke up multiple days later. But when I first woke up, I could only open my eye a fraction. But before I did that, there was a quiet period of time where I could hear certain footsteps, and I got to recognize those footsteps as being from a nurse or a doctor or a particular nurse or a particular doctor. Because this went on for several days. Whether it was during the daytime or the nighttime, in the beginning I couldn't tell what was day and what was night. Because I couldn't turn my head. So I'd only open my eye fractionally, and then I could see shadows of people. And then I could see, and I could hear the medical people talking about me, because they thought I was still, let's just say, knocked out. So they're talking about me, not realizing I could listen to them. And I think from that moment of my brain being wired up to pick up certain footsteps, and then I got to recognize from those footsteps who's come into the room and what they're actually going to do with the equipment that was around me. Because I had tubes in my mouth, tubes in my arm, in my leg. I had a pipe in my leg. I was wrapped in foam. That's another story. You don't want to be in that situation.
No.
Yeah? It's not fun. Yeah? And remember, at the time, I'm thinking I had no leg because I couldn't feel it. So because I couldn't lift my head up, I actually thought I had no leg. But I'm only mentioning this now because, like I said earlier, because of this snowflake culture, certain media companies, they don't want you to say certain things. They can't use certain things that they're told not to. And this puts people in trouble.
Yeah.
To the point where people end it.
So, if you had one message for anybody going through similar situations to what you're going through or what you've been through, what would it be?
Ignore most of the people around you. You know what you got to do, and do it. And do it every day. At the bare minimum, every other day. And then when you get to the stage where you're feeling physically a lot better, depending on your movements, whatever your medical issue is, just because you got to that stage, don't stop. The worst mistake is, like I said before, with the human mind wants you to be lazy. You think you got to a stage where you don't need to carry on doing it. Because you got to that stage, you want to carry on doing it because you want to keep up and maintain that.
But surely the same would apply to general life, right?
I can only comment on what I've been through. The individual knows whether the people, everybody around them telling them same thing, they know if something is not right. Because, like with me, everyone telling me stay in bed, stay in bed, stay in bed. If I'd listened to everybody, 100% I would have been 6 foot under.
So that then takes me on to how and why we met.
I've been helping people on the street, sometimes giving them clothing, food, collecting different food, dropping off to people on the street. We actually physically find people on the street and we distribute food, drink, sometimes clothing if we got it, but mostly food and drink to people on the street, or even one mother and daughter, young girl, they're sleeping in an abandoned car. So it's all well and good, one thing where people set something up and you have people who are struggling or homeless, they go to a particular area and they can collect some things. But some people can't do that and they're physically hiding on the street and sleeping on the street. So late at night, sometimes we're actually going physically finding people on the street. When I couldn't walk, I had a lot of people helping me. I even had neighbors and people, other families, whether they were Jewish, Christian, Muslim, whatever they were, Hindu, whatever, different people helping me. So I'm doing my bit now.
And how often do you do this?
When I'm physically able to do it, I can do it. Sometimes my neck needs a rest, so I can't do it. Today I felt okay, that's why I'm here. Sometimes I have another issue with my eyes because I've got multiple.
There's a lot of people out there that don't even realize this stuff goes on or the depth of it.
I agree with you. Yeah, so all these people started going to the gyms because of me. I've taken people off the streets. They're going to the gyms rather than causing mayhem on the streets. Even one of the gym equipment I used was made from the steel that's been melted down from police amnesties, where the local public, they can hand in their knives, swords, blades. The steel gets melted down and turned into gym equipment. And I remember Joshua was using equipment that had been made from the steel that's been melted down. I also, in one location, used one of those. It's a good thing. Also, another point. Because some of you on the street are on the street because you can't read or write. I never realized this before. Some of you don't realize. I can speak. I'm not the best speaker, but I can speak okay. I can read and I can write. And I can write different type of letters, including what I had to write to Parliament. I had a nightmare dealing with councils, governments, etc., dealing with people on the phone, dealing with people in the buildings, and I can read and write. And I'm not deaf, I'm partially blind. If you're deaf or you're blind or you can't read or write, now I can see why people have ended up on the streets. If I can read and write and ended up in trouble with these people, imagine if you're deaf or you're blind, total blindness, or you physically can't move because of whatever spinal injury, whatever you might suffer that's permanent. And now I can see why people end up on the street, or they're no more.
And if it wasn't for what Pint and other charities out there are doing, what would be the hope for these people?
Shout out to C and Pint. There's multiple others. There's another charity I work with alongside in North London. Shout out to N2. They know who they are. Shout out to the Italian population. Shout out to the Iranian population. The Italians and the Iranians that I met, we've joined forces doing project helping people on the streets. Shout out to you. Shout out to Shakira. Shout out to AEG, who make all the fridges and washing machines, a German company. It was one of their head of Europe that I met. That's when I met Shakira. And then from her, Katy Perry, long story. Shout out everyone. Well, I just recalled one thing. I mean, I was in Birmingham and I ended up meeting the girl who got shot by the Taliban, Malala, who won the Nobel Peace Prize. And she's been studying in Oxford. I'm not sure what she's doing now. But I was shocked when I met her. And you can see where the bullet has gone right near her eye on the corner of her head. And it was a shock to see her in that state, where she's been shot when she was, I think, 13 at the time. And then from that, from almost clinically dead to doing her degree in Oxford. And at one point she asked me, has anybody in my family ever gone to university? And I said to her, only my sister has. No guys have ever gone to university. And she said, why don't you be the first guy? And I thought she was taking the mick. But then it stuck in my head. And believe it or not, and I didn't even mention this earlier, when I woke up in hospital, I couldn't even remember my name. I even forgot I had a baby daughter, my little boy. And then from that, I've managed to do my degree. I managed to do my Bachelor of Arts. And, well, if it inspires one of you to do something like that, all well and good, but I thought I'd mention it. So shout out to the universities, they do a good job. Shout out to Malala. Also, I want to shout out to Matchry. Shout out to Eddie Hearn. Shout out to Matt. Shout out to Frank Smith. They helped me a lot and inspired me, and when I met a lot of the fighters along with them, it inspired me to go even further. Shout out to all of them. Shout out to Frank Warren, Prince Nassim. Peace.
Good news. We got the tickets. You're coming to the fight, baby. See you there.
Hi, Mohammed Anwar, Michael Buffer here, along with this guy. I think you know who that is. I just want to send you my best wishes, and we're pulling for you to be real healthy and see you ringside soon, I hope, okay? Cheers.